Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Today I think I'm going to be doing a little bit of a demo of a process of how I do some of my landscapes, and this will be a fairly simple iteration um, of this. For this purpose, we're going to be do this things fairly easily. We're going to have just a soft piece of charcoal and a hard piece of charcoal. This softer piece has it goes on easier, but it also doesn't get as dark. Whereas this one is hard to remove and goes down really heavily. The other tools will be a set of mechanical erasers, a thicker one and a thinner one. And it is possible to draw with these, and I think that's what we're going to be able to do. With them, I'll be able to show you all that. Today I think that we might go for something like a seascape, and I think part of the first part is to establish the sky, because I think with a lot of drawings, if you ever watch Bob Ross paintings, he likes to start with the background and then move to the foreground. And for charcoal, I think that's what we're gonna try to do as well. So we're gonna try to figure out where the horizon line is. So, depending on what you want it, you generally don't want it in the middle. You don't want it up there either. But let's say we want to emphasize the sky today, and we can just define the horizon line right there, slightly less below the halfway point. And what we can do is we try to like block in the storm clouds, right? So maybe we have, and we want to also pinpoint exactly where your greatest light source is. So for mine, I think I want the greatest light source to be somewhere around here because if you know the rule of thirds, you want it to be the intersection of the thirds. So the upper quadrant, I think our source of greatest light might be somewhere there. And you just, work this in. Like that. And what we can do right here is you can take our fingers, and it's a lot of finger painting. And you can just literally just work that into the surface. So remember, this charcoal is a very flexible substance, and it can allow you to actually do a lot of things. Even once you put it on, it's easy to move. And you can just wipe yourselves off with a cloth like that. And so from here, we might want to give the sky some definition, as we could take our eraser. We can start kind of like trying to define some gradients. And so you can see, you can still use your finger to kind of just blend those in. What you have right there is like a particular location where the clouds are breaking. Let's say we want to open up another section here. Let's say this corner. So you can see that the eraser is also a drawing tool. And you can see, and then you can just take your fingers and blend in a little bit of that inconsistency. And you have a moment of lightness in the top. You can go over with your eraser and remove more. So almost like you're removing the charcoal is like a barrier to light, and by erasing, we are removing those barriers. You see now you have a moment of lightness on the top right there, and let's maybe extend it here. Let's maybe add a section right here. And we can just work that into the scheme. Don't worry about those little bits of blemishes. They'll be taken care of soon enough. And here is if you want, you can choose to darken certain aspects. Suppose I want a dark spot to be here, and maybe here. And then you just same time work that in. And what you have here is an approximation of a stormy sky. And we can obviously come back to this point either. So now the point is now we want to establish our ocean. So we're probably looking for something that is kind of intense. And so we like to start from, in this case, I like to start and define the waves. So for example, here. These are going to be where the darkest parts of our waves are. Just kind of lightly go over the rest of it. And you already see there's sort of a texture going on right there. So we want to work that. Think about the direction that the waves are going. Now this is part where it's like those erasers are going to come really handy from this point on. So what we want to do right now is say we want to define the waves here. So kind of right here. Maybe this is a really, tempestuous ocean. For the outlines in the back, give it a little bit of height, suggesting that the waves are kind of more intense, and have these lines come to the foreground. And you can just choose to blur those slightly. And right now what we're looking for is also to, you also distinguish by the dark spots in the wave. So it's not just the light, but it's the relationship between the light and the dark. And this is where this comes in. Usually behind the apex of the wave, you usually have the darkest part of the wave. And here is where they go, right between those two light spots. And so, you know, the wave goes up and down. If the light's coming from this direction, if the splashes are coming from this direction, then the part that goes up is going to be the darker part. And what you do is you can just do you see how that that creates a trail? And what you do is, you know, if you take this wave and then you intrude into the dark portion and you take somewhere out, then you get a approximation of a wave effect. And then here you will find that right here in front, there's going to be another portion of the wave right here that's going to be kind of dark. And just block that in. So a lot of this is like you want to be able to sort of surrender control of the material, if that makes any sense. Because the material wants to do stuff. You just kind of have to let it do what it wants to do. And then you see that right here that you can take your eraser and then just bring these a little forward. And then sometimes you want to highlight the highlights in that wave structure. And then what you do is we're going to try to do this for the rest of it. So we have the second peak. It's a milder peak than the others, but it circles around. I think it circles around a little more. So it's going to come around here. It's going to hit its darkest part here. And here it's going to be a little bit light. Have that situation. Don't worry about messing up any other parts of this. This is charcoal. It's going to be messy. But this you should treat as is never finished until it's finished. And even when it's finished, it's probably not finished. I don't know if anything that I just said makes any sense. You see, you have a second crest right here. And you can dull this in a little bit because this crest is going to be a little more subtle than the first one. And you can have just block in the little splashes. So here we want this to calm down a little bit, darken that, but at the same time, you know, we could go in and then here we take the soft charcoal and just go all in right there. From here we can add small wave ridges. I'll wipe ourselves off. Maybe hints in another wave ridge beginning right there. And let's say this, it overtakes a little bit here. Just really want to get the idea that there's splashes happening, and it's not just clean. Here. And so right here, then we could just block in a few dark parts, like right underneath. And you can just and so we have this situation that is here. We want to like take some of these darkness and really just hint, you know, indications of a wave, as Bob Ross likes to call it. You know, so in the background you don't have like a smooth gradient, it's still rough out there as well. And you want to do the same. In the back right there. And then you want to, maybe you want to can see how the stormy sea is developing. And as we move here, and this is where you see how, you know, the sky is starting to come apart, but that's okay. So now what we have is this situation right here, and I wanted to leave this part here because we're going to construct a landscape from this point on. It's not just going to be a singular thing. So we're going to come here, and depending on how we want to do this, I think we're going to use a light charcoal this time. Maybe it's and you want the objects that are farther away. So the idea behind this outline is that as this is the shoreline, as the shoreline goes farther away, it's going to get closer to the horizon, it's going to get smaller. For the purposes of this one, I like to just actually block this in all at once. That way I know where I'm at. I'm gonna wipe this off just a bit. What we have, and you can use your finger at this point to work in some texture. So from here, I wanted to define the base of this mountain scene right here, this landscape right here. And I want to just come here and take this come here, see that? Maybe I want the shore. Define it right here. What you can see is the general outline that has been established right here. And we could just work that in. Remember, this is charcoal. This particular drawing, you're not trying to be a neat freak. That would be counterproductive. Okay. So what we want to do now is establish some planes, right? So like the moments of light. So for example, we can have a moment of light right here. If we look at the left side, here, let's say we have a see, by putting the light there, we establish a plane. And then we just mark where we want our planes to be. And those are going to be our guidelines to add some dimensionality to this drawing. So next step is we're going to try to start. It's kind of getting a little hard to maneuver with this right now. So we're going to just wipe ourselves off. We're going to take our eraser. We're going to start working at it. So we're going to come here. Let's say we want to accentuate see, now we can just scribble in some rock textures. See, now you can see this rock texture. And what we want to do here is create, see these, where the waves meet the cloud, it's not just going to like be, it's going to be crashing into it. So you want to be, this is what you want to do is you want to create the indication of waves crashing into the rock. And so you have this is you mess this up and then you really try to whiten that space. As you can see, you have a little indication that there's a crash going on right here. Maybe you want to draw that out slightly. Right here, so it looks like it's, you know, crashing into that situation right there. What you want to do is you want to work from the front and then you just want to keep going back, right? So you have defined this from right here. Maybe this is a dark area right behind here. And then you want to come here and just highlight that upper part. Or draw here, coming up, and you can see just bring the splash of water up to the top. Don't worry about ruining other parts of the drawing, it's gonna get better. So what we have right now is this situation right here. And as you go behind, I think you might want to try things like you know, decreasing. In my case, I kind of like see what happens when I darken some of the parts in the back. And the details in the back will be a little smaller than details in the front. So maybe this one's just right here. Come here and block in. See how this comes down here and so what you have here is you scribble down these stuff in the back, and it's going to be a little less luminous than the part in the front because that's the part you really want to bring out. So any dark spots right here, you want to like reinsert it in, just give it a little bit right here of a rub. And then you can use your finger to bring in that the ocean again into that particular space. And then what you want to do is you want to take the eraser and just accentuate the stuff in the background that is the moments of light. A lot of this is textural. And then in some places you want to do like, you don't want to just a splash in the foreground, you want to do some splashes other places in there too. So maybe there's a and then let's say maybe we want to do a really large splash right here. Let's say right here. You want to draw it in. That way it looks like it's crashing in. And let's say at this point you're like, so what we have here is this so far, kind of like a ocean crashing into a landmass. And I think at this point, let's say you wanted to add a lighthouse. A lighthouse, let's say you want to add a white lighthouse. And this is what you draw with your eraser. Instead of your charcoal, right? So it's a little crooked of a lighthouse, but it'll do. And let's say there's a building connected to that lighthouse. And you can see, just trying to get rid of those. What we have right there is the beginning workings of a lighthouse. And here you want to define planes, right? So let's say this part is your end, and that's where you want to be, keeping in mind where the light is. And see, now you have a rudimentary building. And then you can add subtle details like the ridges and the architecture. And then you can take your eraser and just really, really accentuate the light side of the lighthouse. And here you can just add maybe here. And then the top part right here is usually a dark area leading to the top where the light is. And if you know things go wrong, you can just lightly take your pencil, your eraser, and give that place some contour. And the last but not least, you want to establish the top part of the lighthouse. And that's it. And if you really want, you can take one of these blenders And you know, I could just go in and actually really get those outlines through. And so now we have a lighthouse. And let's say we want this lighthouse to be shining into somewhere. That's pretty easy to do. Just take an eraser. Really lightly just put it right, whatever. Let's say you want the light to shine here. And you can see that you can create a light, and then you can from here just and as you get farther away from the source, you will just it will become more dull. You can even blend this in a little bit to represent that the light has range. So yeah, and then so this is the general scheme for how I usually do. Oh yeah, you could just clean up some of this stuff in the corner. But yeah. So this is typically a tutorial that I can use to do a very simple landscape. Hope you enjoy.